In one post, the elected president revealed to the world what the end of the war in Ukraine might look like. And, to say the least, it will be a major diplomatic question. I am very pleased to appoint General Keith Kellogg as assistant to the president and special envoy for Ukraine and Russia, Trump wrote on his Truth Social channel. Together, we will ensure peace through strength and make America and the world safe again. By appointing Keith Kellogg as his special representative for Ukraine, Donald Trump also embraced a very specific and pre-announced plan to address one of the most challenging foreign policy issues he faces. Kellogg, an 80-year-old former national security advisor to Trump, outlined his peace plan in detail in an article for the America First Policy Institute in April. At the start of the article, the war is described as a crisis that could have been avoided but was dragged into an endless war due to the incompetent policies of the Biden administration. In short, a ceasefire will freeze the front lines, and both sides will be forced to come to the negotiating table. However, the details become more complex as the plan unfolds. Changes in U.S. involvement. Kellogg spends much of his time criticizing Biden's actions, stating that his administration provided too little lethal aid too late. He argues that Trump's decision to provide Ukraine with its first lethal aid in 2018 demonstrated the strength needed to counter Putin, and Trump's softer approach to the Kremlin leader, avoiding demonization as Biden does, would enable him to broker a deal. Kellogg believes more weapons should have been provided before and immediately after the Russian invasion to give Ukraine the chance to win. However, it is at this point that the plan, as considered by Trump's future national security advisor, becomes unappealing to Ukraine. Kellogg argues that the U.S. should avoid becoming entangled in another conflict, as its own weapons stockpiles have been depleted by aiding Ukraine, leaving the country potentially vulnerable in any conflict with China over Taiwan. He suggests that Ukraine's NATO membership, which is currently a distant prospect, offered as a symbolic gesture of solidarity, should be indefinitely postponed in exchange for a comprehensive and verifiable peace agreement with security guarantees. Above all, the plan asserts that it should become the official U.S. policy to achieve a ceasefire and negotiate a settlement. It states that future U.S. aid, likely provided as a loan, would be conditioned on Ukraine's negotiations with Russia. And the U.S. would arm Ukraine to the extent that it could defend itself and prevent any further Russian advances before and after any peace agreement. This assumption may now be outdated due to Russia's rapid advances in eastern Ukraine, and the current high levels of U.S. aid already cause discomfort for Kellogg. Freezing the front lines would be frozen by a ceasefire, and a demilitarized zone would be established. In exchange, Russia would receive limited sanctions relief, with full relief only coming after a peace agreement acceptable to Ukraine is signed. A tax on Russian energy exports would fund Ukraine's reconstruction. Ukraine would not be asked to abandon its claims to reclaim occupied territories but would agree to pursue this solely through diplomatic means. It acknowledges that this will require a future diplomatic breakthrough, which is unlikely to occur until Putin leaves. It is temptingly simple and quick in its approach. However, it lacks adaptation to what Moscow will demand and how it has used the diplomatic process in the past, cynically achieving military gains. Freezing the front lines will lead to several brutal months ahead as Moscow seeks to capture as much territory as possible. The Kremlin has previously ignored ceasefires and pursued its territorial goals, often bluntly denying it. A demilitarized zone will likely need to be enforced, possibly by deploying NATO troops or soldiers from other non-aligned nations between the two sides. Maintaining and staffing this will be challenging, to say the least. It will be massive, spanning hundreds of miles of border, and will require enormous financial investments. Arming Ukraine to the extent that it can stop current and future Russian offensives will also be difficult. The plan notes that the United States produces 14,155 mm artillery shells a month, which Ukraine could expend in just 48 hours. Paradoxically, Kellogg wants the U.S. to arm Ukraine more but also acknowledges that it may not actually be able to do so. A new stage of the conflict. The plan offers Ukraine a desirable chance to end the violence at a time when it is losing on all fronts and facing a severe shortage of essential human resources. A hurdle it may never overcome and one where Russia will likely always outpace it, but it initiates a process that a cunning and deceitful Putin will relish. Exploiting ceasefires and Western weakness is his strong suit, a moment he has been waiting for almost 3 years. The plan accepts Western fatigue, acknowledges that its arms production cannot keep up, and that its values are wasteful. It also pays little heed to what Russia will do to disrupt this vision. This is a grim compromise for a grim war. But it may not bring it to an end. Instead, it could open a new chapter where Western unity and support begin to crumble, and Putin advances, both at the negotiation table and on the battlefield, ever closer to his goals.